Afterlife is one of the latest and greatest overhaul mods for 7 days, but it has a bit of a learning curve. So today I'm going to introduce you to what the mod is, what it does, and why I think this is my new favorite way to play. So Afterlife occupies a sort of hardcore niche within the mod scene. It amplifies the survival aspects of the vanilla game, and it introduces some new mechanics that enhance the realism and immersion within the zombie apocalypse. So you'll see things like slower progression, there's no crosshair, no compass, no map, not even date and time, and there's this new hybrid weight and backpack slot encumbrance system where you can only carry a set number of items, but there's also weight to every item that you carry and you can't go over a certain carrying weight. But don't worry, you'll have a chance to, for instance, craft yourself a better backpack or find a watch or even craft yourself a map to keep track of where you are. And the first thing that you'll notice is the mod is pretty visually stunning. It uses a lot of the OCB mods that change the appearance of the game. The desert is very much more deserty, and the snow biome is much more, well, snow blindy. The nights are terrifyingly dark, and having a light source is an absolute must. Fortunately, you'll have a torch slot, so you can just drop a torch right in there and have lights on and your hands free. But let's go back to the beginning first, the game settings. The devs suggest that you keep all settings on default for your first playthrough, and balance is a work in progress, so if you're playing the mod, be sure to join the Afterlife Discord for feedback and support. And definitely generate yourself a new map, since the mod drastically changes the geography, but we'll touch more on that later. As you start, you'll be prompted to select a starting class, and each class has a few strengths that you can leverage. For example, the normie will spawn with a watch, so you can keep track of time from the get-go, and the sheriff actually spawns with a pistol, which is what I'm going to select here. So choose carefully, and let's get started. The first thing that you'll need to do when you start is read the starter book that'll be in your hand. This will kick off your beginner quest. The beginner quest is a must-do. It'll introduce you to a lot of the basics, like crafting your first backpack to open up some inventory slots and crafting some primitive tools. And you'll notice that a lot has changed and that there's a lot of extra steps, even for something simple like crafting a stone axe. The condition of your tool is now displayed on the item icon on your hotbar, and you can even see what skills you're leveling up as you perform various actions. Yes, there are action skills, and I'll break that down in a little bit. In the item stats, you can view item quality, which ranges from 0 to over 65,000, and repairing an item will actually decrease this quality. And to get going with your beginner quest, you're going to need to venture into the POI that you spawn near. Among other things, a cooking pot is top on your priority list, and fortunately, it seems like this is a guaranteed loot item that will spawn somewhere in the building. So once you're done with this quest and you've got your feet under you a little bit, we can sort of dig into the deeper mod mechanics. Let's start by reviewing the skills. On the first page here are your attributes. These are mostly unchanged from vanilla. There are perception, strength, fortitude, agility, and intellect, but now with the addition of finesse. Attributes read like a speedometer. The outer ring is your current level, 1 through 100. The inner ring is your progress toward the next level. And on the right is a detailed view of what level you're on and what bonuses you're currently getting. Although you do accumulate skill points by leveling up, you cannot spend them on your attributes. These are increased through your actions. And so on the next tab, you will see your skills, and these are the action skills that increase your attributes. You can see your progress from one level to the next, and by clicking on the skill, you can see some more details. And on the top, these meters indicate how heavily this skill affects each attribute. And so by using the gathering skill, it will increase your perception attribute the most, followed by strength and finesse, and then increase your fortitude, agility, and intellect just a little bit. It also shows you what benefit is conferred by your current level in each skill. And as a general rule, your action skills that are below level 10 or so are worse than they would be in vanilla. But at level 10, they kind of even out and they start increasing in effectiveness beyond that. Each action skill can actually go up to like 1,000, but it's scaled so that you get the majority of benefits between 1 and 100, and you get very diminishing returns after that. And it's worth noting that action skills in melee weapons increase the damage with that melee weapon, but action skills in firearms do not. Instead, they increase things like reload speed and weapon handling. Next in line are the perk books, which remain mostly unchanged from vanilla. There are a few changes here and there, and I think there are more coming, but this does give you a great way to visualize your progress in each of the sets. Next are the crafting skills. These are your crafting skill magazines. Of course, just as in vanilla, you'll be on the lookout for magazines to increase your crafting levels. It is important to note that you can no longer influence which magazines you find based on how you spend your skill points. Magazines are still found in appropriate areas, but you can't really game the system anymore by putting your points in certain areas. You'll see that there are many new craftable items and even new tiers of weapons and tools, but we'll get to those in a little bit. The crafting skill magazine system remains mostly in line with vanilla with the exception of armor, which is now split into 3 categories. There is tailoring for light armor, leather working for medium armor, and armor crafting for heavy armor. And speaking of armor, the entire armor benefit or the bonus, the set bonuses and stuff are being reworked, so don't expect to find any mystical enchantments on your armor anymore. Armor that looks the part generally plays the part. For example, the nerd outfit is now called the useless outfit, which is exactly how it appears in the first place. Or this farmer hat here, which is now called a sun hat, which decreases it's called rain on glass effect. So typically when it's raining, you'll get water in your eyes and it kind of clouds up your vision a little bit, but with the hat on, this is drastically reduced. And many other armor pieces are just like this, with just very minor bonuses. There is a new workstation though, and it's called the research desk. Essentially, this allows you to scrap magazines that you don't need into literature fragments that you can then repurpose into any other magazine that you want by just crafting them with this station. And finally, we have perk points, and this is about as close as it's going to get to the old vanilla skill point system. Leveling up your action skills also applies some experience points to gaining perk points, and you can spend your perk points in various areas without being restricted by your attribute skill. Now, there are some really interesting and unique bonuses found in here, so it is worth taking some time to skim through and see what they all are. Okay, so now that you're properly oriented, you'll have to make your way to the nearest town, but good luck finding it because you don't have a map or a compass. Just follow the road basically and see where it takes you. Construction and repair have been completely overhauled in Afterlife. Building with full shapes has been replaced with a ghost structure system. By crafting and equipping what's called a planning tool, you can access the shapes menu and start framing out a building. You can pick up these ghost shapes, but you can't stand on them, so nerd pulling has effectively been eliminated. The ghost shapes will only be visible with either a planning tool or a construction tool equipped, and the construction tools will allow you to make further upgrades to these shapes. Just check the construction tools magazine set to see the available building tools, and with the construction tool in hand, hold R to open up a radial menu, and you can then select the desired building material. And so how it works is basically high quality materials like steel will require higher quality tools like a hammer in this case. And from here you can basically just select what material you want and go straight from ghost structure to that material. There's no like linear progression of upgrade materials like there is in vanilla. So I can upgrade these shapes directly to concrete or whatever else as long as I have the materials. And higher tech building tools require fewer hits to upgrade. Just note that Afterlife does add new building materials. In addition to the typical wood, cobblestone, concrete, and steel, we now have joined wood, brick, and inconel. But wood and stone building types have increased complexity with the addition of pitch, nails, or mortar to build. You'll learn how to make pitch in the intro quest I mentioned before, and nails are simple enough, but now require a ceramic crucible, which is an early game, easy to craft forge tool that you can craft right in the campfire. But mortar is new and it's a little bit trickier to make. Just check the recipes to see what you'll need, and note that there's a recipe for different types of buckets. So there's like a wood, a bronze, and a metal bucket, and better buckets increase the amount of mortar you get while also decreasing the crafting time, and those buckets are filled with this dirty infected water by scooping it up from any organic water source in the world. As for brick, you're gonna need a kiln for that, probably several if you're the base building type. By smelting clay in this, you'll slowly produce bricks. Speed up production by crafting brick molds. There are several different recipes for this, and by adding molds to the station, the crafting time reduces by 50% each. And at this time, I'd like to point out just a couple of major quality of life features for Afterlife. At any time, read through this default tooltip menu here. You've probably seen this in vanilla and you just kind of tune it out like I did, but this is actually completely new information here. It outlines 7 brand new controls to help with inventory management and decreasing menu time. It's definitely worth taking a peek at these to see if any of them will be useful for you. My favorite is the ability to actually hold shift and swipe over my inventory or my tool belt to move things around, and you can even use this to move things between containers. Afterlife also introduces many additional layers to resource collection and crafting, with the addition of copper, gold, cassiterite, anthracite, chromite, garnierite, and sphalerite as mineable ores. And yes, it's definitely going to take me some time to figure out what these things are and what they're good for. It also adds things like pig iron, tin iron, wrought iron, bronze, brass, nickel, tin, chromium, inconel, copper, silver, and gold as refined items inside the forge. And just as a primer here, the forge system is very complex now, and it's heavily based on realism. So of course you can just find or you can mine for certain materials. Let's start off easy with some iron ore, something we've all seen before, right? In the description of the iron ore, you can see that it will smelt into iron, of course, but it will require level 3 heat. Inside the forge, you're gonna put the ore in right over here. Let's also put some wood into the fire and turn it on. The snowflake indicator over the ore means that it's too cold to smelt. The heat bar just above shows that we're hovering around level 2 heat here. So let's try instead to burn some charcoal. Charcoal is made predominantly in the charcoal kiln, which is another new crafting station, but it's also a byproduct of just burning wood in a campfire, for example. And now checking on the heat again, it has increased. It's hovering just below level 3. So we're almost there, but the forge is still too cold. Let's try instead to use some charcoal powder. This is made by refining the charcoal into powder inside the mortar and pestle, which is yet another new crafting station. It's still not enough though. This burns at the same temperature that the charcoal does. So instead, let's try some coal. Now, you can see that the heat is rising up to level 3, and then the iron ore starts smelting in. The snowflake icon is gone. There's another resource called anthracite, and this is found exclusively in the snow biome, and this burns at 1 level higher than coal does. And you can also add in a bellow, and this will get the temperature up another level. So you can kind of mix and match these depending on what you have available to you to try to get the heat that you need to do the smelting that you need. So by adding all of these different ores and metals, Afterlife sees the introduction of 3 new ages of tools and weapons. So in vanilla we have like the Stone Age, the Iron Age, the Steel Age, and the Mechanical Age. But in Afterlife we see the addition of the Scrap Age, the Bronze Age, and the Inconel Age, which kind of slided nicely between the existing ages, just like we saw previously with the building materials. And so there are a ton of new weapons and tools to play with that kind of fit into these ages, and the mod also integrates the Izayo weapons pack, which introduces more than 60 new items to find, craft, and master. Weapons can be found in loot or purchased from a special vending machine found inside trader compounds, but speaking of traders, the traders themselves are no more. The creator of the mod notes that traders make for a more linear game experience, where biome and POI tier progression follows a very strict path, and so the traders have been removed. But dukes are still useful, and you can exchange old cash found throughout the world within these special conversion machines. The last thing to touch on are changes to health and wellness. Afterlife introduces a new stat called Vitality, and this represents your overall well-being. During your first 7 days, your vitality is kind of locked in. It shouldn't drop too much, but beyond that, you're gonna need to prepare to keep up your fighting spirits. Vitality is affected by several factors. Your surroundings, such as dreary areas, will decrease it, but a well-decorated base will increase it. In fact, you can go around the world and pick up pretty much any decor item that you want to decorate your base with, and this will go a long way toward keeping your vitality high. Light exposure is another one. Darkness, of course, will decrease it, but sunlight will increase it. Exhaustion is another one. Being well rested will increase your vitality, but pushing through exhaustion and not resting will decrease it. To rest, you simply need to spend some time around your bedroll. Simply be within a land claim zone that has a bedroll down within it, and you'll gradually become more rested. Wetness is another factor, and of course being cold on top of that will decrease your vitality. Rain can increase your wetness, but this can be prevented with an umbrella. And if you're soaking wet, just stand next to a campfire for a couple of minutes to dry off. Also, I don't know if this is a joke or what, but if you're thirsty, you can simply look up during a rainstorm and it will slightly increase your hydration. Next up, we have fear. So fighting and being around zombies will decrease your vitality. And the more zombies are around you, the faster it will decrease. And vitality basically affects things like your maximum health and stamina, as well as health and stamina regeneration, attack speed, and much more. So you really have to focus on this, or you're gonna bear a significant penalty. Food has not seen many significant changes other than the food and water maximums have been increased from 100 up to 200, so you have like twice as much capacity for it. And so that means you can go longer between meals, but it's gonna take you more food to kind of top off if you're low. But the liquid situation is much more interesting. You can find empty jars out in the world, they have returned, and you can fill them up with dirty water in things like toilets or ditches, and this will give you dirty, infected water. You can also take water out of water coolers, which will be clean, basically mineral water. And to clean your dirty, infected water, you're going to need to boil it in a campfire. This will make infected water, which you're then going to have to boil again to get clean water. It is a lengthy, time-consuming, and expensive process, so you're going to need to start on this very early on. To preserve your jars, you can pick up something like these blue barrels here, and you can put them down inside your base. This will allow you to dump out your jars and fill these barrels up with a variety of different liquids for future use, including even honey is possible to put in these. If you do end up consuming some dirty infected water, you're gonna get hit with the zombie infection. Now, there is no known cure for the zombie infection, but it can be slowed down with medicine. I think the idea here is that you're going to get infected eventually. It is inevitable, and you're also going to die in Afterlife. That is also inevitable. But on the topic of spoiled food, you can actually eat bad food and you will not suffer any immediate consequences like you do with the water. Instead, you're going to get hit with food poisoning pressure. Now, how this works is that this will affect your vitality, and if your food poisoning pressure goes up to 100%, you're going to vomit the contents of your stomach, resulting in a full loss of food and hydration. So eating bad food is okay in a pinch, as long as you're paying attention to your food poisoning pressure and you don't allow that to hit 100%. And on the topic of death, if you thought that death was going to be a reprieve, think again. Deaths incur an instant negative 25% vitality penalty, and your infection will carry over. Eventually, you're going to unlock the distillery workstation. This is a must-have. Here you can input any type of dirty water, be it from jars or from these wooden buckets here. And by burning something inside the workstation, it will slowly produce distilled water within the station. It's basically like a forge. You're basically smelting water into the forge, and then you're going to craft jars of clean water out of it. And in my opinion, having several of these running at a time is going to be necessary for you in the long run. So as you can see now, my infection is starting to get way out of control, and it's now affecting my vision. And when the infection reaches 100%, you don't just die, you also become turned. Now back onto the water system, dew collectors have been entirely reworked. They are now called rain collectors, which is, based on appearance, exactly what they are. You will need to set up a lot of these, and they will only produce dirty water while it's raining. The final addition to Afterlife that I want to touch on here today are the new enemies. Afterlife adds a variety of new zombies. Some are strong, some are weak, and the way that they spawn and interact with their surroundings is entirely different. I don't want to give too much away because it's kind of fun to explore and experience this on your own. And from what I've heard, there are plans to add many more types of new zombies in the future. I don't want to reveal too much. The devs have some surprises up their sleeves. From what I've been told, there are some significant changes to how Horde Night operates, so I didn't do any digging into that. I'm not going to spoil anything for you, and I didn't want to spoil it for myself because I'm going to do a whole playthrough in Afterlife, and I hope that you'll join me for that. I'll put a little pin here for the playlist if you want to tune into that. Anyway, I hope you found this information helpful, and I will see you hopefully in the Afterlife. Hey everyone, how's it going? First of all, huge shout out to all my supporters over here who put the life in Afterlife for me in this channel. So what do you guys think of Afterlife anyway? I think this reminds me a lot of Undead Legacy. I'm really excited to play a full playthrough in this mod, which should be linked up around here somewhere if you want to tune into that. Anyway, as always, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Stay tuned for more, and I will see you hopefully in the Afterlife.